Welcome back to the September Oh So Inspired Collaboration Hop. My name is Marlon. I'm so glad you're joining me today. In order to find all of the participants, use the hashtag that's on the screen. You can also find other collaborators by using the playlist that I have linked in the description box below. This month we were inspired by Chris Smith, who is Ink Pad 1. This is our inspiration piece, the beautiful yellows and sunflowers. Such a great fall card. I was inspired to use the Build a Fall Birdhouse and the Sweet Birds on a Branch. This birdhouse has been in my stash for quite a while, so I pulled it out. I love how tall this little birdhouse is. It has cute little shutters, and then there's foliage that goes along with it, which will help me to incorporate those sunflowers and the fall theme. I had a piece of cardstock that I had inked with some Catherine Pooler Winterberry, I think it's called, and I didn't use. So I thought I would layer up some additional blues and greens. I started with the bundled sage. I added the ink to my mat, spritzed it with some water, and then I just smushed my panel on top. I'm going to dry it, and then I'm going to swipe two new colors on. I will start with, I believe, the iced spruce. That has more of a green tone to it, and then we'll add a little bit of the blue and the gray with the weathered wood. I'll spritz that with water to try to get a little bit of movement. It's going to look like a hot mess, but once I get my birdhouse cut out and all of the pieces put together, it really is going to have a nice weathered appearance, which is what I like about the ink smushing and die cutting. I wanted a little bit more blue in my composition, so I'm just going to paint on some Stormy Sky, which is going to add a little bit more of a brighter blue tone to this, and I love this color combination for fall. I'll dry this panel, and then I'm going to cut out my birdhouse. There's a look at it. There is a roof line that has been embossed by the die, and so I am going to use Stormy Sky and a small blender brush to add that detail so it stands out just a little bit more. I will also use the blue, which is again the Stormy Sky, to color my shutters. There's a little heart that's going to go in the center of that, and I will color that up with that bundled sage. And as this comes together, I did want to encourage you, if there is something along the lines in this hop that inspires you, I would absolutely love for you to use the hashtag #IWasOhSoInspired to find, so that we can find the creations that you make based on the inspiration you found in our videos. Here's a look at the additional pieces that I cut for the sake of time. The brown pieces were cut using vintage photo and gathered twigs that were smushed onto a piece of watercolor cardstock. I also used for the yellows the scattered straw and mustard seed. I did a little bit of gold embossing for the top of my acorns. Those greens are Rustic Wilderness and peeled paint. And then for the oak leaves, I did ink on some vintage photo. For the bird, I used the Stormy Sky, and then for the body, I used antique linen. I ink blended on this 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of cardstock some bundled sage. That's weathered wood, so these pieces are all cut from weathered wood. This one is scattered straw and vintage photo. Once I added the ink to the paper, I did splatter each of it with a little bit of water. I'm going to add my background, which is that bundled sage, to my card panel, which is going to be A2 size. The plaid frame that I'm using is called Kaleidoscope frame, and this is also from Spellbinders. I am going to link it in the description box below, along with all of the other products that I used, in case you're interested in purchasing any of them. I'm going to quickly put this together. So I cut out the frame very carefully from the weathered wood, making sure that I kind of had each of the rectangles spaced properly so that I could have that frame. You don't need to use the frame to put this together. I just thought that the added detail would be nice. When I put each of the plaid pieces together, I did start with a vintage photo on the top. I added the weathered wood to the middle, and then I added the scattered straw to the back, and I have that beautiful 3-layer coloring. You can see that that bundled sage in the background is going to peek out behind the plaids, and this is going to create a really cohesive design. All of the colors are going to replay throughout this card. Here's all of my foliage. Of course, I love splatter, so I'm going to use my Gonzai Tombi. Goodness, I can't speak. Watercolors. I'm using one of the golds to add a little bit of sparkle and a little bit of gold tint to each of the pieces. I've added some double-sided foam tape to the back of my birdhouse. I taped on the little window at the very top of that birdhouse. I am going to create a contrasting piece so that it stands out a little bit more. I thought that it was getting lost by using the same tones from the background. But first we're going to start building our foliage. So I'm using the exact same placement on the left side as I do on the right to bring a little bit of balance. I've added the 2 green leaves at the top and the bottom, and then I'm breaking it up with the brown leaves, or the green leaves that I did ink with a little bit of brown. And then I plan on putting my sunflowers, all 3 of them, at the bottom. I do like to use a odd number whenever possible, so I'll use the 3 sunflowers, trying to balance out my composition. Once I get the sunflowers on, I am going to add the acorns, and when I add the acorns, I just feel like I need a little bit more fullness to the foliage that I've created, to the little cluster. And so off camera, I am going to cut out a few more leaves, and I'm going to add them to the composition to create a little bit more fullness and a little bit more balance. So right now it's looking, I mean, it looks fine, but I think that it just needs to be a little bit fuller. So sometimes if you want to just cut out a couple extra pieces and play around with them, I think, I don't know, in my case, I think that more is always better. You tell me what you think. I would love to know whether or not you have started creating your fall cards. Here's a look at that window that I was telling you about. I colored it a little bit darker with some weathered wood, and then I created a bow using some twine. This is like a triple bow that I created using a bow-it-all. It's a very old tool that I have in my stash, but it works really well when I want to create bows because my fingernails hinder me just a little bit with that. So here is, these are some more twine pieces. You can see that twine over there on the right hand side. What I'm doing is I'm just cutting little pieces and I'm adding it to the foliage, so it's going to tie in the twine that's at the top. But it also made me think of, because this is a birdhouse and birds build nests in birdhouses, that they would have gathered some of that twine, and it just added more interest, more texture, and just helped complete the story of the card. I wanted to add a little bit of yellow to the top. I thought that it would tie in a little bit better since it was so bright with the sunflowers at the bottom, so I added an enamel dot to the center of my bow. And then these are those additional green leaves, and I think that this really, the bottom green leaves that I put on at first were kind of lost because I did cover most of it up, and so this fullness, adding these additional leaves, I think really just does complete the composition and really makes it nice and full, and I think that it turned out beautifully. I want to thank you so much for joining me. Please make sure that you support all of the other designers that are participating. I want to thank you for joining me this month. Here's a close-up look of at the finished card. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks again for watching.